Greetings. My name is Mildrica Cannon. My lesson is based on a second grade lesson for comparing and contrasting. It is based off of the RI 2.9 Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standard. To start my lesson off for all of my visual, kinesthetic, and auditorial learners, I will have an anchor chart displayed, something similar to this one. This is an anchor chart that I have used before as well. Overall, my anchor charts will have the actual standard. Before I start my lesson, I will actually read off the actual standard with my students. The standard says to compare and contrast the most important points presented by two texts on the same topic. That is the gist of my lesson. My goal of saying that objective is for students to understand the purpose for doing our lesson. Then we will actually read together what comparing and contrasting is. They will understand that when you compare something, you are telling how they are alike. And when we contrast something, we are telling how they are different. For an example, I have two young girls on my anchor chart. One girl has brown hair. The other girl has yellow hair. One girl has brown eyes, the other one has blue. Now these are details that I will point out to my students. We will actually compare and contrast these two basic pictures just to see if they have an understanding of what it means to compare and contrast. Also, I asked them these particular questions that says, how can we compare the two girls? That means to how can we tell how they are alike? How can we contrast the two girls? In other words, saying how can we tell that they are different? Hopefully their responses will be centered around both pictures of two girls, that's how they are alike, and then they can give me details stating how they are different. They may tell me one girl has brown hair, the other girl has yellow hair. And they could also be a little bit more specific and tell me that these two girls have the same exact hair bow colors. So, and also I will go into telling them that we could use a Venn diagram, which is a graphic organizer, or you'll use a Venn diagram to compare and contrast. Now, when I do my model lesson, it will be basically modeled based off of this particular graphic organizer right here. On this graphic organizer, I kept it blank. I probably would laminate this to be able to write on it for the two types of text that we're going to be comparing and contrasting. But the overall thing I want my students to understand is that we will put whatever topic of the two topics of our text here, and here, and then we would down the middle, in the middle portion, we would tell how those two texts are alike. Also, another thing that I would do is I would read off a list of comparing clue words and a list of contrast clue words. So when we're reading text, they would know what types of words to look for to let them know that they are comparing or either contrasting. In addition to my lesson, I will be implementing the I do, we do, and you do model that is implemented in my school district. For the I do portion of the lesson is where I would model how to actually use the Venn diagram. And I will also implement using the vocabulary video titled Comparing and Contrasting, just to help students get a deeper understanding of what the skill is. For the we do or guided practice portion of the lesson, this is where the students and I will both use the Venn diagram to compare and contrast our two passages. And these two passages are based off of a Mastery Connect, which is a resource that we use in our district. And I will also, along with students, I will also give them an individual Venn diagram to implement as well, to use as well, just to be able to record their own responses. In addition to that, when it's time to do the independent portion, which is the you do, students will actually use sticky notes to complete an interactive anchor chart. So with that interactive anchor chart, students will there will be individual questions on the anchor chart, and each student will be given 3 sticky notes to represent each question, and they will give their responses to each question on the sticky note, and they will place those sticky notes on the anchor chart. So that will be the gist of that lesson. For the closure portion of the lesson, I will actually engage students in think, pair, and share, where they will actually turn to a partner and discuss a vocabulary term, or what they've learned for today with their partner, and then I will actually have someone from each group to actually stand and present what they've learned from today. For differentiation, my advanced students will be given the opportunity to work in groups to complete a set of task cards based on standard RI 2.1, which is a skill that we've previously covered together, which is asking and answering questions based on a text. Also, for intervention, my struggling students will be given 2 pictures to compare and contrast, and they will work in groups as well, and they will be assisted by myself and my assistant. For accommodations, again, my assistant and myself will assist these learners individually. Lastly, I will give a closing assessment in which students will compare and contrast another set of texts on the same topic. And with these texts, students will use a Venn diagram to compare and contrast. Students will be held accountable for giving at least 5 differences and at least 4 comparisons for this assessment. I will then grade my assessments once students have completed it. I will give them feedback, and then we will just simply have an open discussion of what we could do to improve ourselves and improve our grades and our scores. And that is the overall gist of my lesson. Thank you for watching.